Welcome to another episode of A Candor Gander. It's a DFK variety show where we interview people like you.
Thank you.
Today's episode, we're interviewing Mr. Rock 808 himself. If you don't know who he is, you're gonna learn about him. You're gonna want to join his Twitch. He'll do those every so often, and we're gonna do some chatting about DFK in general. I've been gone for 2 weeks. A lot's happened. I was joking with Rock. You blink for a minute and so much happens here in DFK. So with that said, feel free to consider like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Turn on those notifications and grab a drink, take a seat, and welcome to the flock. So welcome, Rock 808. How are we doing?
Thank you very much. We're doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on the show. We're super excited.
Well, it's very nice to have you. I remember watching your Twitch stuff. Geez, it feels like years ago, but it must have been like 4 or 5 months ago.
Right.
And you really, it was you and all the other streamers who were streaming, months ago, who sort of really got me hooked into DFK. I drank the Kool
Mm,
Aid because of you all. But for
yes.
those of you who don't know you, introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Sure. Well, I go by Rock 808 online, and I guess just a little bit about me. Computer programmer, system administration, doing a bunch of Linux stuff for years since I was a wee lad, and uh, teaching Red Hat Linux administration officially for the Red Hat Corporation, if anyone's familiar with Linux, doing their certification programs for maybe the last 20 years or so. And finally, when COVID hit, the pandemic, all of these in-person classes stopped, and I had to figure out, what am I going to do now? I had tried streaming a few years ago, some little nonsense games that nobody cared about. I had 2 or 3 viewers. Wasn't any big deal. But I thought, well, maybe now's a good time to get back into it, and started here recently. I guess I should back up a little bit. My crypto experience started back in 2013.
Wow.
I bought my first Bitcoin when it was $99 or $100, right at that
Wow.
price point, right? But I'm not a
There's always a
millionaire.
but. There's always a but. I want to hear the but. So what happened?
Oh, the butt was pretty bad. So at one point, I remember owning 201 Bitcoin, which I kicked myself for not continuing to hold. Uh, which of course I think would be something about like $16 million at the high point when it was
Wow.
$60,000 or recently.
Wow.
But at some point, when it was dropping down, I guess like right around 2014, when it had peaked at $1,200 and then started to come down, I was like, well, I feel it's going to go down even more than, I think it was about $800 down from 1,200 at the time. And I was like, all right, I think it's going to go down more, which it did. I was correct. But I moved all of my Bitcoin, I shouldn't say all, most of my Bitcoin over to a USDC value
Mm.
equivalent back at that time. It was in one of the exchanges. And so I just let it sit there. And of course, I got sidetracked with life and other things come into play. And the next thing I know, it's 2016 or so, and Bitcoin's back up at 17,000. And I'm like, oh, I
Oh,
missed, I
ouch.
missed that opportunity.
Ouch.
So, right,
No.
right.
No. What but it's one of those lessons, right? That it's a painful, expensive one. I got in when Bitcoin was a couple $100.
Hmm.
And I didn't put nearly as much. I think I probably put in like 100, $200. It wasn't a full Bitcoin, but same sort of situation. Unlike you, I just pulled it out entirely because I said, "Oh, this Bitcoin thing. Well, that was a fad. I missed out." And then so I sold for a loss, and I came back in 2016 sold for a loss, and and here I am,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm determined to not, to just hold, and
Yeah.
it's one of those fool me once, shame on, on you, fool me twice, three times, geez, like no more.
Right.
And
Right. Shame on me at that point, right?
yeah, oh my God, no kidding. What and but so you're now streaming DFK stuff, but you didn't start
I am.
streaming DFK stuff. What were you
Right.
streaming before then?
Yeah, so last year I had a friend's, I have been involved in crypto a long time, and I did get back in, of course, and so I've gained a little bit, and I've talked to a lot of friends. I've been a very big Bitcoin proponent over the last several years, and uh, one of my friends, I guess middle of last year, started talking to me about NFTs, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. Didn't know anything about it. Hadn't researched, hadn't heard of it even. And then I had another friend about a month later come and say, "Hey, I want to, teach me about crypto. I want to make NFTs and I want to sell NFTs." And I'm like, "This is two different friends that come from two different sides. Let me." And
Yeah, what is this?
what actually stimulated me to look into it was I like to help people. And so when I had a friend say, "Teach me how to do this," that's what triggered me. I said, "You know what? I'm going to learn. I'll figure out what's going on and I'll teach her how to get all this set up." And the more I looked into it, I was like, oh wow, this is pretty interesting. This kind of technology is right up my alley, crypto related. I believe in all this kind of stuff. And I looked around for metaverses, like what's the best metaverse that I could get into? And I did probably about a month's worth of research, all kinds of stuff. Sandbox was the one that came out on top by a decent margin. And so I jumped into Sandbox, really got involved, streaming 8 to 12 hours a day
I
online on
know.
Twitch.
I don't know
Yeah.
how you do it. I struggle to think, how am I gonna fill an hour's worth of a stream. You do 8-10 hours a day. I'm like, wow. And it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like you're repeating yourself. Like
No.
it's constant, right? And it's
No.
um and I guess that's what's cool about things like DFK, and I'm sure, I'm guessing it must have been the same way with Sandbox. I mean,
Mhm.
there is so much stuff on
There
a
is.
weekly, sometimes daily basis, where
Yeah.
you could spend 8-10 hours on a subject, and talk to a handful of people, and sort of, make it very sort of unique, and sort of an interesting, fun experience. But so you started with Sandbox. How did you transition to
Yeah.
DFK? I mean, where did that come from?
Right. So I had a decent, a pretty good friend of mine from Sandbox say, "Hey, Rock, you should try DeFi Kingdoms." And they have some good stuff going on. And at that time, when I get involved in something, I really get involved in something. And so I was like, I don't have the bandwidth for anything else other than this one project, and I really want to get in, and I don't want to take the time to learn something new. Every minute of the day I want to spend on Sandbox at the time. And so
Right.
finally, after this friend of mine came to me 4 times, again, "Hey, Rock, you should really look at this." And then a couple of weeks later, "Hey, Rock, you should really look at this." I finally took a look at it. And I'm telling you right now, what brought me in was those somewhat high, I think it was like a 500% APR
Right.
in Sparendale.
Right.
Back around in March, I think March or April is when I finally got in, and it was that really high APR that Sandbox wasn't offering, and I was like, well, let me look into this. I'm at least going to
Yeah.
move some funds in there, right? That was it. I was at least going to move some funds in there. But that's all I'm going to do, right? I'm going to still focus on this stuff. But as I started to get into it a little bit more, I'm like, you know what? I really like this game. I like a lot of aspects about it. I like the complexity about it. I like strategy. And then, of course, all the community stuff as well. And I really started to get more and more involved to the point where I wanted to spend more time on DFK than in the Sandbox. I still believe in Sandbox. It's a good project. I do want to do more stuff with it later, but right now my focus, my 12 hours a day, or actually I spend a lot more than 12 hours a day on DeFi Kingdoms.
Oh my
And I just
God,
want
no
to
kidding.
absorb as much as I possibly can, right? So
Are
that was
are
the
are
transition.
Are you like me? Do you listen to like the AMAs like
Oh
more than
man.
once in a day or like in a week? Sometimes I'll listen to them in loop, and I know Sandwich Punch will do the write ups, but
Mm-hmm.
I find myself listening or catching different things almost every time, where it's
Yeah.
like I overlook that piece, and that actually is probably really important. Let me listen to this one more time, and sure enough, I'll catch new things here and there.
Oh yeah.
Um, so then let me ask you, Rock.
Sure.
You've been through the roller coaster a couple of times. What keeps you motivated during bear markets? Because I
Oh
mean,
my
I'll
goodness.
tell you, geez, you wake up, you're like, all right, I'm gonna. It's easy. It's easy when things are, when the money's rolling in and your portfolio is doing well. It's a whole different story when it's quite the opposite. So what keeps you
Oh yeah.
going?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I have a complete answer, except just for the fact that I have been through it for many years. And of course, there's, past history of something, whether it's stocks or anything else, does not indicate what's going to be happening in the future.
Right.
Crypto could absolutely fail. The governments could, ban it. All kinds of things could happen that, and some people say, well, you can't really ban Bitcoin. Well, if the government comes in and actually says something like, Google and Apple Store, y'all need to take all the apps off of your stores from the phones. And if anybody's caught, running a Dex online, we're going to shut you down and all this kind of stuff. That could really cause enough fear that a lot of normal people just wouldn't touch it. And then sure, it could be
Right.
underground, but what kind of life is that going to be when you're trying to run away? Anyway,
Right.
things could happen. I doubt things will happen, but it's possible. But I guess what keeps me going in the bear market is just a confidence that cryptocurrency is the future. And if nothing else, then just the technology is going to be moving forward. And
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
also a strong believer in freedom and privacy, although, of course, crypto, you could argue, does not have much privacy, but
It's give and
financial
take.
freedom and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
No, for sure. Well, and and I have to ask you, 'cause I know you've been involved in crypto for a minute, for a
Yeah.
while, and you've done different projects. What's most impressed you about DFK? There's got to be something that's like, what, they've got something here. Let me stick
Mm.
around. What's that piece for you?
Well, originally, like I said, I think it's very important for us as a community to recognize what brings new people in, right? And
Right.
I will have to say that the thing that triggered me was the APRs or something where there was a good financial or good possibility of great financial gain, fairly easily or quickly. And so that was the thing. Something else that would have brought me in is a super fun game, which I've for years I've been perfectly happy spending hundreds of dollars. There was a game not too long ago, Forge of Empires. It's a free to
Mm.
play game. And even though it's quote free to play, you pay a little bit extra and you get, the bonus levels ups and some other stuff. And I would be paying $400 a month, even though I didn't have to, but that's how much money I was pumping in, $400 a month to play this free to play game to get all the level ups. And then when I get serious into a project, I don't mind spending the money for entertainment.
Yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so I suppose one of the things that impressed me a lot, of course, DeFi Kingdoms doesn't really have that game yet. Those are the APRs that came in. But the fact that they had things in place, the possibility of growing, and I really enjoyed the community. That was one of the things. Had a really nice community of people, and then throughout the course of the next couple of months, I was really impressed with um, uh, the way that the dev team would stick together, do things, get things done, and I think that was one of the things that has helped me to believe more in the project than probably most things, and the fact that they're sticking with it through the bear market when a lot of people might have closed up shop and left. I think we even see that from some streamers, right?
Oh
that
yeah,
had been
yeah.
around, and it's not just DeFi Kingdom streamers, but a lot of crypto streamers in general. Bear markets around, and people pack up shop. It's like going down south when it's winter up north. You know, you just pack up shop and you leave for a little bit. When it thaws back out, people go back up north, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and you know, I've joked. I think I was joking with you. I was like, hey, you know, the only reason I started streaming was because I needed my DFK itch, you know, scratched, and I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
if no one else is doing the, and there's a period in time where it felt like everyone sort of went away, right? And I was like,
Yeah,
you know, let me talk to people. Let's see what's going on. But you're right. You know, it's the camaraderie that's
yeah,
really kept me. It was the camaraderie and the resilience of the
yeah.
team sort of stick through it. I mean, that's really inspirational for me, and it's really kept me in. So let's do
Yeah.
this. Let's transition. I know we were talking about, you know, I've been gone for a couple weeks. Let's
Right.
talk about let's talk about those exciting, you know, so much happened.
Oh
I
man.
went I picked 10 things and I shared those with you.
Sure.
Um so the idea here is, well, you know, we'll look at those, we'll talk to them, you know, tell me what you think. You know,
Yeah.
is this really something to be excited about, or is this sort of like, hey, a distraction, look over here instead. So let me
Hmm.
play a quick sort of transition video and we'll get into it here in a sec.
Yeah.
Do this here. See, yeah, sometimes technology. Here we go.
Technology. I know.
Oh, there we go. Here we go. All right. Rock.
Transition.
808.
Uh,
Yes.
yes.
You got the
Especially since
bloater
I've been
fish gum. Yes.
go ahead. Go
No, no,
ahead.
no. You've been a teacher, so I thought, hey, yeah, I thought you were a teacher. I was
Yes.
like, let
Yes.
me insert this here. Let me find something that might interest. Yes, so it's back to school night.
Right.
DFK
Right.
DFK. We're gonna do a progress report here. We're gonna check it out. We're gonna
Perfect.
see where we fall with things. So you'll let me know if it's, you know, what you think, and it's in no specific order, but a few
Okay.
different
Yeah.
items here. So you know, one of the big obvious ones, if
Mm,
you're sort of interacting with the games, these
yeah.
dynamic gas fees.
Woo.
You know, it boils down to that, you know, when the network is busy, the gas fees will scale up, and when it's less
Yeah.
busy, you know, the fees will scale down. You know, you know, and I think someone asked, it was Frisky Fox, I think. Someone asked him, well, you know, is this sort of an anti-bot sort of mechanism? And the answer
Hmm.
was not so much. It was more of an anti-spam mechanism.
Yeah.
And I think it's something Ava Labs is sort of recommending. I mean, what's your take on these dynamic fees? I mean, what do you know
Yeah.
about them, and you know, how do you feel about them?
So of course, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I recently grabbed one of Carlo's waifu bots, right? Hadn't had that. I had 27 heroes that I was leveling up on my own, and I was like, man, I don't want to buy any more heroes. It's already too much of a hassle. I'm waking up at 4 a.m. to level up these guys, and it's that was actually a little draining, right? And
Let me one up you real quick here, Rock.
yeah,
I
yep.
had 93 heroes I was
Oh,
manually questing.
mm,
Um, and I did look at different bots, and you know, I can't speak to all of them because I've not used them up, but I finally landed
right.
on GFK Helper,
Okay.
Coolio and the crew. You know, amazing sort of experience there, and I'm liking it so far. I mean, gee, the idea of a bot period. I mean, I feel like I've gained time back. Oh my
Right.
god, it's
Right.
crazy. But but so how does that affect your botting? How does that affect your questing in general? These
Yeah,
dynamic reads.
absolutely. So what had happened was, I was doing all this manual stuff, and it is really getting to be a drain and kind of burning me out actually to be doing that just for grind and clicking. And then suddenly I somehow ran across bot stuff, and so I started looking into it. Probably spent a week and found Carlo's thing. And I guess we don't want to focus too much on anyone specific, but um, I got a hold of that software, installed it, then my world changed. It's like, oh my goodness. Again, like you said, freed up so much of your time. In fact, we've heard this from other people also. Because my time was freed up and because I could focus on other things, I went out and bought about another 80 heroes over the course of this last month. Right. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you're talking about having a mechanism that helps inspire more stuff about the game rather than being a deterrent. However, of course, it was about a week or two after I ended up installing that we had dynamic gas fees, and so
Hmm.
now all of a sudden we're seeing a huge rise in the cost of that. Now, one of the things that I will mention is, of course, right off the bat, anyone who's doing questing on uh, anyone's doing a lot of questing, even if it's manual questing, is not going to appreciate how those higher fees really cut into your rewards or your return on investment or any of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, 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 for sure. What? Here's an interesting fact for you. So I found a quote on Discord, and I think this was from Frisky as well. At one point in time, and for how long, it's sort of to be questioned, right? But at one point in time, bots accounted for about 90% of traffic,
Mm, yeah,
which is interesting to think about. But I can imagine that at any one point in time, right? If there are that many transactions, yes, it's bots, but the the network doesn't recognize bots from spam. I'm sure it was
right.
hey, cool it down, or let's address the fee, address the situation with with a varied fee structure. No, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
So would you say for you, is this something that sort of, a game changer, good or bad, or something that, it was something put out and maybe needs improvement? What would you give this piece of news? What grade would you give it?
What grade would I give it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on how you keep it in mind. So I'm not particularly very happy that it's cut into my gains, right? And I think anyone who's questing even manually is not going to appreciate that. But at the same time, I definitely understand why it was put into place. As long as questing is profitable, which I even questioned for a while, is questing even profitable now when gas is 20 gwei, right? But uh, it does seem that it's still going to be a good thing for a while. I'm glad to see that we are not having too much spam. I mean, even if you're requesting with a bot, each individual person is not, I wouldn't say is spamming, even though they're just
Right.
more regularly sending out heroes, right? And so if we can cut out the spam, I feel that that's good. If someone's doing 50 transactions a second, why is that? We probably need to stop that, right?
Right. No, for sure. Well, and the other piece to this, from what I gather, I was I've been pretty busy this last couple of weeks, but I did sort of get a feel from the community that, yes, the dynamic gas fees news was sort of like, whoa, where'd this come from? But more so the way sort of it was rolled out, I think, sort of took people by surprise. I know there's something the
Mm,
devs were talking about, but
yeah,
as far as rollout went, it almost felt like it caught people off guard.
it did.
It, and I'm sure it's one of those things where unintentional. I'm sure there's room for growth, and the team will sort of adjust
Right.
future rollouts. But it was sort of interesting. So let's, dynamic gas fees. Let's put this aside. Dark summoning. What
Oh
what's
man.
what is it? What do you know? My understanding is, it's an ability to burn two heroes.
Yes.
And in Frisky Fox's opinion, it'll impact the demand of heroes. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
sure impact in which way. You could probably argue it both ways. I take it as an opportunity to sort of burn some of our mistakes because some of my first
Yeah,
summons, I'll tell you, Rock, they're terrible.
I hear you. I agree. Yes. Lots of pretty bad floor heroes out there. Well, I say bad. I don't know if any hero is particularly bad. We don't know enough about the game now to really make a good decision. If you're trying to compare it with professions, then maybe so. But we keep hearing professions is just a small part of the game. I think some of these, underpriced, I say underpriced, these lower priced floor heroes are actually going to be diamonds in the rough, perhaps. Yeah, I've been scooping some up.
I mean, well, gardeners for the longest time were, I think, considered, garbage heroes. But I don't know about you. They've grown on me. I kind of would want some more gardeners, believe it or not. At least with the way
Yeah,
it's, gardening and CV structured. Um, you know, would I have burned them in the past to do a dark summon? Sure. I don't know. I think I would need to know more about dark summoning specifically.
yeah,
What are you getting in return? Although I will say the last time there was an opportunity to burn heroes PJ. I think everyone who sent their heroes on PJ wished they would have sent more. So maybe that's my
yes,
answer for me.
yeah. So the question is, of course, on the next burn event, is it actually going to be as rewarding as last time? Because we might find ourselves, get hit with something where maybe they realize, oh wow, last time we had such good rewards for that, we overshot. Now we need to, make sure we're not giving away quite so much. So,
Right.
uh, yeah. However, as far as dark summoning goes, I'll be honest with you. I have not had a chance to look into that much myself. I do know that, of course, you take your two heroes that you're going to pair up. Those two get burned, and you end up with one uh, hero in the end out of that. And of course, it does have some more. I don't want to say advanced abilities, but it does have some enhancements that you wouldn't normally get. And
Right.
as far more than that, I haven't looked into it because I want to wait until it's out and I see more. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's other people that we can talk to that would know a lot more about it. It sounds interesting. I like the burn hero aspect, or at least the ability to. But as far as the details, I don't personally know a lot about it. I like the idea though, so we'll give it a good rating for at least the idea there of burning heroes.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, no, and Kupo agrees here. He thinks he likes the idea of dark summoning, but will it, is it something we all want to jump into? Well, let's learn
Hmm.
some more first. So that's dark summoning. Jewel is now deflationary. What do you think of that?
I don't know if I want to share too much of my strategy
Oh,
here, right?
okay, okay. I
um,
don't blame you, but I will say this much. According to Frisky, we've, as far as dual season zero goes, we burned 95,000
mm,
jewel, and
yeah,
and 95, and an additional 95,000 went to a quest fund.
yeah,
Um, and that's sort of interesting to think about. We'll see what season one brings us, but it's definitely deflationary now. So I mean,
yeah.
boy oh boy, what? So I want to ask you what your strategy is, but
Mhm.
but what's your thought on jewel being deflationary?
Yeah. So I really like it. I think in general, I like just deflationary aspects of things, especially not for a game. If Jewel is not going to be the playable token anymore, in other words, if we're not going to be summoning with Jewel, if we're not going to be paying for things or much in Jewel, then having a deflationary token, I think, something that I can put money into or value into, and it's going to appreciate over time. I really like that, especially if we're talking about like a governance
Mm-hmm.
aspect where the more I can hold on to that, because I have fallen in love with DeFi Kingdoms so much that I would like to have some opportunity or even more of an opportunity to help in guiding a direction and
Right.
having a strong vote in a specific way. So I will say that I've helped secure a little bit more Jewel recently. Um, and as far as the deflationary aspect goes, like I said, I think it's going to be good. Um, However, I'm a little skeptical on what the price is actually going to be. I don't know if that really matters though. So even if Jewel is, does not increase in value too much because maybe there's not a lot of utility as far as being able to play with it.
I'm there with you. I'm
Yeah.
so there with you. I know there's two camps right now. There's the bullish on Crystal, bullish on Jewel. I'm of the mind, and maybe this is where you fall. Where short term, yes, I think Crystal is the
Mm-hmm.
token sort of
I'd agree.
to sort of grab and have piles up. But long term for sure. I mean, it's got to be Jewel. It just and I'll get more into that here as we go. But add to all that the fact that it's deflationary. I mean, 18 cents for me seems like a bargain.
Well,
But that's just me.
Sergeant, let me ask you a question here.
Yep.
When you say long-term Jewel is the way to go, are you talking from a governance perspective or a financial perspective?
So yeah, so NFA, right? But from my perspective, I think it's both. Um, is it ever gonna hit $22 again? I don't know. I mean, but at this point, I'm happy if it hits $1, if it hits five.
Sure.
Um, I think big picture now, and it's the last point I'll make. And we'll get to more into it here in a minute. But I think big picture, there's some interesting things in store. What those things are, I can't tell you because I don't know. But from what I gather from the team now, it could be two things, right? Hey, don't get rid of your jewel because they don't
Right.
want us to get rid of your jewel. Or hey, I've seen Frisky, say, hey, NFA, but I'm holding on to my jewel.
Sure.
Big picture ideas here. Um, but it's interesting, and it sounds like you're maybe of the same thought where jewel
Mm-hmm.
you're leaning towards versus crystal.
Well, again, a lot of my decision goes to Jewel because I'm interested in the governance aspect of it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also interested in the passive income aspect of it as well, with the fee sharing and all the bonus stuff there. I think that's something that I've enjoyed in a lot of other areas of my life in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of investment that I like to do.
Bingo.
Um, but as far as Crystal goes now that relates, at the same time, I want to play the game. And so I know I need some crystals. So it's a little bit of a toss up as far as which one I want to do, but certainly holding a large bag of jewel, I think. But again, it has a lot more to do for me for the governance aspect of it.
And that's
And
interesting, yeah. And we'll get to that a little bit of that here in a minute too. But before then, let me queue up another one. Multi-questing, it's here. I know we were just talking about bots. I'm again shout out to Dfk Quester or Helper. I'm sorry, I'll get the name right here in a minute. Dfk Helper. I know you were lauding the waifu bot, and there's others. I know there's Dfk and there's a few others as
mm-hmm,
well. Um, but Dfk, I mean, I'm sorry, the multi quest option. I made use of it for a minute
mm-hmm,
before I decided to go the bot route. And while it cut back on the amount of time I was investing, I was still finding myself, spending more time than I was looking for
yeah,
in spending. It's great. I think if I had maybe 20 heroes, I would, I maybe make more use of it and sort of go that route.
yeah.
But I mean, what are your thoughts? How do you like it? What are you thinking there?
So for the multi-quester, maybe like you, I haven't played around with it a lot. I have clicked on it a few times and I've been doing a few things, but once I have the bot running, it does most of this stuff for me in such an automated way that I don't need to use it at all. I do have one wallet where I've got one or two heroes in there that are not following certain bot rules, and or I don't want them to be tied up with a bot, and so I have it off to the side, and I am using the multi quester just check and poke and peek around in there, and it looks nice. I appreciate the fact that now I don't have to hunt all over the map to go find
Right.
where the tug of war is, or
Yeah,
any of this
right.
kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And I can easily retrieve all my heroes at once, and everything is really nice. And I like the fact that they have tried to consolidate us being able to do multiple quests rather than sending out each individual quest one at a time and spending all those transactions to kind of lump that all into a single transaction. So all of those things I highly appreciate. But when it comes down to it, I think is I still have to be awake at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
perhaps to do some things. And is the multi-quester even going to handle things like leveling up my hero at 4 a.m. when it gets back from a quest or not, right? And
Right.
so for those type of things, I definitely appreciate their work. I know they're coming up with some good stuff. For some people, like you say, with a few amount of heroes that are kind of more casual about the game, I think that's going to be fine. But I think for hardcore players, you really need a lot more automation. Yeah.
Right, right, right. No, and I agree with you 100% there. So let's address an elephant in the room. So,
Yeah.
X Jewel, gone but
Mm.
not forgotten with an asterisk here. And before I get into some of this, I wanna sort of tease out a comment Ogre brought up here.
Uh, yeah.
So yeah, he thinks hey, fee sharing is clutch aside from the heroes, another major value prop in the game. Why wouldn't you go the fee sharing route? And I think let me see. Rock may have dropped off, but I'll continue here. We'll give him a minute to jump on. While he jumps on, I'll just go through some of the things here. There was so much said. I had to rewatch things a couple of times because it was just like mind-boggling. I needed several minutes to digest. But it sounds like the new siege will bring 4 or 5 things here into play. Um, so to recap what those are, it'll give us the opportunity for more snapshots. Um, yes, will still it'll still be used as a voting power, but more so than that, you'll be able to get some snapshotting involved. You'll be able to lock up your siege for a period of time, allegedly, so that it allows you to do some snapshots, as I mentioned. But profit sharing, which is similar to actual, but a bit different. The way I understand it, the way it was sort of described, it'll sort of operate a lot more like the garden, so that you have your sedual stick, and you'll be able to withdraw your money as you go, rather than sort of see it accumulate over time as a multiplier. And then maybe this is where we get some of this multi quest plus sort of discussion, or sort of where it comes into play. But um allegedly, with some of the siege you'll be able to unlock some new features. It'll sort of operate as a subscription service, where you have access to premium features, maybe some more automated questing, maybe not. I mean, we'll find out, but it'll be interesting with due time. Again, I'm sort of bullish on that. I'm interested. I'm curious to see what'll happen. Um, time will tell. We'll give Mr. Rock 808 here a minute. It looks like. Let me see. Let me let him know he's not on. Can you try again? And maybe I'm off. Can I get a thumbs up in the chat box if you guys can see me? Want to make sure it's not my internet connection. Oh, here we go. Here's Rock. Let me bring him back up here. There we go, Rock. We had lost you there
Hey.
for a minute.
Yeah, very interesting. It looked like I was still connected in chat. I could
Oh, that's
I could
funny.
I
That's
could
funny.
type to you in the host chat channel, and
Uh, yeah, that
interesting.
was weird. I did nothing, I promise. But
Oh,
maybe,
that's okay.
the Illuminati is out to get us.
It
They heard
is.
profit sharing, and they're like, "No way, Jose."
No, we don't want that. Yes.
uh, yeah, I mean,
So C Jewel,
you know,
yeah.
Sejul. I mean, your thoughts with Sejul? I thought that was maybe one of the most under under the radar exciting things that have that's come out
Mm.
in the last couple of weeks. I mean, what's your take on it?
Oh, I don't even consider that necessarily something that I would even bring up necessarily, right? So, of course, we do know that X Jewel is going away, and it's actually going to become C Jewel on Crystal Vale and S Jewel on Serendale and all this kind of stuff. But other than that, I mean, it really is functioning just as X Jewel has. Well, I guess it's going to have more features and a little slightly work a little bit differently. But I would say, uh, as far as underwhelming, yeah, I mean, maybe not much is happening with it now. However, and I was trying to make sure a few minutes ago that I was actually connected and everything, so I wasn't paying 100% attention to what you were saying. But if you weren't mentioning the fact that there is going to be some additional functionality with C Jewel, then absolutely there is. So
Yep.
or they have said that we're going to get some new stuff. It sounds cool and fun. I'm kind of a little bit hyped on it, but we don't know what it is yet, right?
And it may be, I know we were talking about multi-questing, maybe sort of potentially, it could be beefed up. Yeah, this may be one of
Mm-hmm.
those things where you stake your C jewel, you get added features you have access to,
Yes. Well,
more
that's what they're talking
automation
about.
being one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they talked about a subscription service where maybe they make DFK Duel Season 1 sort of a subscription based I'm sort of
Yeah.
speculating, reading between the lines, but making that a subscription based sort of service where you maybe you have access to certain things. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Again, more to come on that, but it was sort of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, let me hit you up with another one here.
Yeah.
The Kingdom Builder stuff.
Oh
What's your
man.
take on that? One, have you signed yourself up for that for the co-marketing thing? And if you haven't, why not?
Right. So, to be honest, I just haven't looked into it too much. I don't fully understand what it is. I do think I probably should for maybe a couple of reasons. I think it's offered, I think they're kind of doing something to offer that to streamers and
Yep,
content creators, but
yep.
also just game devs. And, I know programming and I'd love to add some extra code and some functionality. In fact, I've even talked in my own live stream about maybe adding a new game to our Discord, right? And some other stuff that could be DeFi Kingdoms related and everything. And I think, in fact, one of the things that I want to teach online is even how to do some coding and interacting with DeFi Kingdom. I thought that would be kind of fun too, to have a little, maybe 30 minutes a day or an hour a day of my stream to, hey, let's talk about coding for DeFi Kingdoms and kind
Oh
of teach a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. I think that'd be awesome. I know they have some sites for sure. I know ADFK is on there, Expert, DFK Earn. They've got
Mm-hmm.
those games like you were mentioning, DFK Arena and Fight Club. It's sort of great. I know they're trying to roll out their own stuff, but if more content creators want to come on there and sort of do their thing, it's good for them. It's good for us. Why not?
Yeah, I think it boils down to I just have been so busy with other things. I haven't really looked into it. Yeah,
So I'm gonna bug you about it the next time I hear talk to
please
you, so
do.
that way you do it. I've submitted an application, Mr. Cooper, who's on the chat box here. You wrote a very nice sort of note in support of me being co-marketed. And I know I've been sort of going back and forth with Sun Bear here.
Hmm.
But absolutely, rock, do it. You've got Coolio's support here in the chat as well, so absolutely
Nice.
try it out. Um,
Yeah, very good.
let's do another one here. Goodbye, Serendale 1.0. Hello, Serendale 2.0. What do you think of that?
Well, oh man. So I have maybe a different outtake than what I hear a lot. In general, I would say I guess it's good because Harmony's been having some issues, and I guess we want to leave that behind. But to be honest, I guess I would say when I first heard about that, I was like, why do we need to necessarily shut down Harmony? Um, I mean, the blockchain seems it's got its issues, absolutely. And I know that Bulon would, if he would be listening now, he'd probably jump in and yell at me a little bit for, hey, well, it's got this problem and this problem. He's probably got a list of things because he deals with those people face to face or online or whatever. But and so he probably knows a lot more behind the scenes about, hey, we're leaving here now. But uh, from my perspective, I'm kind of like, why not just keep Serendale 1.0 running on Harmony, even if it isn't great? And kind of like we've got the city York, and then they have New York. Well, Serendale, and then just move over something new to new Serendale, right, on a
Right.
different blockchain, where both of those things could run at the same time. Do we need to shut down the other chain, or maybe just kind of let it dwindle out over time or something? I don't know. Anyway, I don't know all the details behind what was going. And of course, programming maintenance on a chain that you don't really care about might have been a factor also. Who knows?
And
But it,
and maybe it's something they don't talk about often, but I think to me it's partly clear. I think it boiled down to the money piece. I mean, I hate to sort of mention it, but someone else is offering you money when in a bear market, kind of hard to pass up. And it kind of a blessing in disguise. Maybe it doesn't feel that way now, but in 5 years, they were able to sort of do and in part justify a lot of the tokenomics changes as
mm-hmm,
a result. I mean, we otherwise we'd be talking right now about how much jewels flooding the market and
mm-hmm,
I don't think any of them, any of us maybe wanted that. So who
right.
knows? I mean, anyhow, I know I shared this with you. Um, you saw
Yes.
this tweet. I know it's in I believe Korean here, but
Uh-huh.
what it boils down to is, hey, Serendale 2.0 coming October 2022. I mean, what a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I'm no coding expert, but I mean, thoughts on that specifically?
Yeah. Do you want to touch base on Ogre's message here about the last topic
Oh,
before we move on real quick?
I didn't see it. Yeah, please. Which
Yeah,
one?
just
Can you read it out?
yeah, Harmony won't be here in a year, and I could share a ton of stuff about, yeah, and that's one thing that I definitely want to point
Oh,
out is
interesting.
that
Yeah.
I personally don't know a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes for that, and if other people do, there might be some really good reasons why we just wanted to totally bail out of there, which I just don't know. So again, from what different people are seeing, they might not have a fully good understanding of that kind of stuff. So I'm glad that the people in charge are making, and I trust actually that they are making decisions in all of our best interests. And
I
so,
it,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I have it on good authority that Ogre might know a thing or two of what's going on behind the scenes. One, two, I also suspect that Dreamer, Frisky, and the team have been very gracious in being,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
think, very politically polite in the
Yeah.
situation. I'm sure behind the scenes, they use different words, but I've heard and I've
I've
seen
noticed that.
Dreamer trying to sort of dance around how they maybe truly feel. I think it's obvious. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
they've moved, but um, it seemed and like a hot mess. I mean, I think last I checked, they're still trying to figure out. Maybe they're voting on how to, what they're gonna do with the repegging and what they're
Oh,
gonna do
man.
moving forward. I mean, that sounds like a hot mess entirely.
Yeah. I've
Um,
still got a lot of USDC still on Harmony that I'm
ouch,
not touching, just in
ouch.
hopes that they do end up getting that repegged. I'm like, man, that's many thousands of dollars. I'm sure some people have lost a lot more than I have, but still, every bit hurts, right?
Oof. Yeah, no, and here, Mr. Ogre is sort of cluing us in as to sort of some of these behind the scenes. It sounded like, from what I gather, maybe Ogre and others can maybe correct
Yeah.
me or ask if we're wrong. Maybe Harmony bit off more that they,
Hmm.
than they could chew, and or promise things that they couldn't sort of fulfill on. either through reasons of their own, or sort of the way things sort of trickled down. But
Yeah.
um, geez, yeah, no, Ogre. At one point in time, whenever there is sort of a DFK or a con reunion, um, beers all around, and we'll hear you sort of relay what actually happened, because I'm sure
Nice.
there's a lot there for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so Serendale 2.0 coming
Yeah.
October 2022. I
I'm
mean, what
excited.
excited for sure. I mean, what's your big piece that you're most excited about there?
Oh my goodness. I think the big piece that I'm excited for right here is probably just getting another chance to kind of see another blockchain, us expand to another blockchain, right? I would like to see a lot more expansions to a lot more blockchains over time, no rush or anything, but I think that that is a fun aspect to when I first was getting in, we were just talking about getting started, with Perilous Journey and moving over to Crystal Vale, and all of that hype was really exciting. As far as Clayton goes and Serendale 2.0, it sounds also very nice that when they talk about being able to fix some of the potential issues that they had originally with some contracts, and I'm thinking, oh wow, that's going to make life even better for us. And then, of course, also the fact that it sounds like Clayton is one of the largest Asian blockchains out there, very well known, and can bring in many, many, many more players, right? And that's, I think, what we need more than anything else. There's a lot of new players coming in, and so I'm really excited about that kind of thing too.
I absolutely, and it was something I was commenting sort of in the background, with some, some of the community members. It was a bit, we were going back and forth. I think the collective, we, either as a community, and I hate to put it on the devs because I know there's so much to do. I think we just need to be I think we need to be better about how we're onboarding people. I just don't know that there's a
Mm,
streamlined way to do
yeah.
that. I think I'm a new player, and don't get me wrong, I love Gen Chat. I'm there a lot, and I'm sending memes just like everyone else. But I mean, realistically, you come in with a question, hey,
Yeah.
I'm new, I need help. Yes, you'll get the help, but wouldn't it be nice to sort of have
Yeah.
an official onboarding process? I'm a new player, do step
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would love to do some of that. I know you do some of
Oh
that.
well, yes,
Um,
indeed.
but it's, I don't know that it should be on our backs to necessarily
Right.
do some of that.
Right.
Primarily in my case, I don't know. I don't want to relay misinformation. I'm very wary about that.
Yeah.
For me, it's all about opinion. And I'm not. I pretend know tech stuff. I'm not the most tech savvy person myself. So um, but anyhow, yeah, I mean, it's great. I'm most excited personally about the potential new liquidity pools
Oh,
in the new
yeah.
Serendale. I think that would be interesting.
Hmm.
We'll see what happens.
Let me ask you though, what are you most interested in about these new liquidity pools?
It's got, for me, it boils down to two things really. It's the what's the interest, what's the APR, and then
Hmm.
what's the pool allocation.
Yeah.
Um, I was really loving the AVAX Jewel pool in Serendale 1, because it was about 200% APR, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was about 50% of the pool.
Mm,
I was allocated. I was bringing in um a good amount of jewel that I'm not getting in Christabel right now.
yeah. Yeah.
um, so between those two things, that's what I'm most looking forward to. That, those things will always change, and you can milk that for a minute, but when you can, I mean, hey, it beats the interest rates I'm getting at the bank. So
Right.
why
Well,
not?
let me ask you a question. I'm not sure if I caught the right bit of information or not. Maybe someone in chat knows. But one of the things that I seem to remember hearing, either on an AMA or something like that, was that they're going to do these pools slightly differently in Clayton, and maybe onward into the
Hmm.
future, in that they learned a lesson for having really high APRs, and it sounded to me like they didn't want to be doing that again or anymore, because they burned, or I don't want to say burn, that's the wrong word in crypto, I guess, but they flooded us with too many tokens too quickly,
Hmm.
and people that got in really early got massive APRs. I mean, I remember something, I think in Crystal Vale when it launched, I was getting something like 10,000% APR for a little bit of time, or it was some massive amount of number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it was just 1,000% APR, but whatever it was this huge number, and it didn't last very long, of course. But we were so hyped about getting in early, and it was my understanding, again, this thing that I heard, kind of circulating in my head. I don't remember exactly where I got it from, but they didn't want to do that again, and they were going to be doing lower APRs but for an extended period of time, so that more
Hmm.
people who got in more slowly could still benefit um, for a longer period.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't hear that. Not to say that it didn't, it wasn't said. Like I said, I've been gone a couple weeks. It makes sense. I could see why they would do that. I could see why they would opt for that route. Um, and yeah, I mean that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean if they did if they did go that route, if they went that route, I don't know. Now you make me think. I mean, ultimately, really, while I am interested, or at least interested in those pool allocation slash APRs, at the end of the day, once they do sort of launch that C jewel, I think that's where I'm parking a majority of my liquid sort of jewel.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably more than likely move my liquidity pool funds into that.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have to catch up. And where did you hear that? Was it in an AMA? Is that what you heard
I
that?
I'm not positive if it was an AMA. It might have been something that somebody said in Gen Chat. And when I say somebody, it's like Bolin or Frisky Fox,
Gotcha.
or
Yeah.
one of the devs, one of the people was saying something. Uh, and again, I don't remember exactly where it was, but I see here in chat Ogre saying, or somebody was saying, correct, they still will have great APRs, which is what I heard. They're still going to have really good APRs, just not the 1,000 or 10,000% that we had seen, was my
Okay.
understanding, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Hey, that's
yeah,
not too shabby.
and I wouldn't complain about it, even a 200 or 300% APR extended over a longer period of time, to kind of mellow that out a little bit too.
Yeah. No. And I love the idea because you come in. Let's say you're a new player. You don't feel like you've missed out entirely, right?
Yeah,
There's still an opportunity for you to sort of take advantage of these good APRs.
yeah.
Let's chat a little bit about the DFK PvP teaser. Did you
Oh yeah,
catch it by any chance?
I did.
What'd you think of it?
Oh man, you want complete honesty here, I bet, huh?
Be honest, please.
So
Um,
I understand that, of course, as Bullen said in the message, that it is a very rough teaser. They're just trying to get something out there really quick and all this kind of stuff. Uh, but to be honest, and I was super hyped. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is going to be fantastic and great!" And I watched this trailer, and honestly, I kind of felt like I was looking at Fight Club 2.0, right? It sounds like Fight Club with the couple more, abilities and all this kind of stuff. And so, in a way, I was like, man, did Fight Club just steal, Wisdom's thunder? Because it seemed like with a little bit more time, Fight Club could have. I mean, one of the things that PvP or Wisdom's PvP was saying was, we're going to have 30 abilities or 30 things per class, and I think right now Fight Club has like 2 or something. But it wouldn't take very long before for Fight Club to put more in there, and so there's a part of me that's really happy that we're getting PvP and that it's very involved. And I'm sure, I say I'm sure, I'm 99% sure that Wisdom game is going to have better graphics, that than certainly I hope. In fact, I gotta say we're gonna have better graphics than what we saw in the teaser. Um, But then I started to look around at games like Axie Infinity. So I pulled up little trailers for Axie. What's Axie Infinity gameplay look like? What does
Interesting.
Gods Unchained gameplay look like? What is there was some other uh, card game or something like that that I pulled up to see, what is out there right now. Not even necessarily a crypto game. Pokemon. I even pulled up, what does Pokemon gameplay look like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
kind of see what we might be looking at. And I was thinking these are the graphics that we can probably expect from Wisdom, something like the Pokemon game or maybe Axie Infinity. And as far as overall gameplay, I'm like, it looks kind of fun, but I never got into Pokemon and I never got into Axie and all that kind of stuff. Uh, being being the fact that it's DeFi Kingdoms, of course, sounds interesting to me. I'm invested in a lot of heroes, and the PvP sounds fun. But my honest opinion was like, wow, that's a little underwhelming at the moment. But I'm hoping that there's going to be a big change. Plus, there's going to be continued updates. So I really feel that the team is not going to let us down overall. I guess is one of the things. I think we're going to get a
Yeah.
good game. Yeah.
Yeah, no, have you seen, or are you familiar with Stay Mellow by any chance?
No.
I've had him on as a guest. He does like uh the animation videos for, for fun on the side, DFK related. Where he came up with some rudimentary like PvP fighting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he set the bar high for me. Because it looks great, and I understand. Maybe ultimately the game ends up looking a bit like that. Maybe it doesn't. Um, I'll send them your way so you could check them out.
Yeah.
But the graphics aside, they're promising 30 abilities per class, skill trees being available for subclasses,
Yeah.
access to your 4 genetic traits, so you're too passive, you're too active.
Yeah.
And I know at one point they were chatting about a gambit system. They've moved away
I
from
think they've
that
moved away.
to
Yeah.
more of a strategic turn-based battlefield. And I think this is sort of an anti-bot mechanism they're
Okay.
implementing. And I'm not sure what they mean by 25 key mechanics, i.e., stun, silent stays, banished, but I'm sure it all sort of makes sense here at the end. I mean, I think like you, I want to see more for sure. The teaser was interesting, but at the end of the day, like I want to see what the actual gameplay ends up looking like. And I
Yeah.
see some of the comments here. DFK is not a graphic-driven game for sure. Sort of that retro pixel style game.
Yeah.
Um, I you know
Which I love,
I
by the way. Which I do
oh
love that. Yeah.
and I do love that too. Before I move on, I one question here. In your opinion, these 200% APRs, do you think they're sustainable?
Well, I'm not sure about forever, but certainly if you are starting off a pool with, 1,000 or 5,000 APR for even a short amount of time, you are sending out so many crystal or jewel or whatever tokens that you've got on, a new blockchain or whatever, that if you just hold some of those back, then you could provide a 200% APR for a lot longer, right? Like maybe instead of 1,000% APR for the first hour and 900% APR for the next, 3 hours or something, you could hold 200% APR maybe for a week or two or three or four. I mean,
No.
right now we're still at 100% for some of this stuff. So I feel like they can hold it out for a while, I think.
Yeah, and I think an answer to the question, is it sustainable? Will it cause dumpage? All I'll say there is that I have a history, a track record of being someone else's exit liquidity. So you don't have to worry about that. You'll probably take my money, and I guess that's okay. So,
Uh, yeah.
so before I get to this next one, let me cue
Yeah,
up a video.
let's finish up the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
teaser real quick. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go for it. Yep, yep, yep.
one of the things that I would want to say here about this is I'm really, really happy to see more content, more gameplay, more functionality, more utility for our heroes and pets and all this other kind of stuff. So the more people that can put out games, whether it's Wisdom or we see more games like Fight Club or anything else like that coming out, I think that's fantastic. More content out there. I also think that hopefully we'll see some more different types of games too. Like I've been talking about on my stream quite a bit. I would love to see something like an RTS, a real time strategy, and I'm thinking about like Warcraft 3 as an example, a game that I played for a long time, or StarCraft, or some of these other things. In those games, a single player controls dozens or hundreds of units and goes, and some of your little units are little peons that go mining the gold mine or harvesting the wood, and they just automatically go and recycle through harvesting of all this stuff. And then you have the build the barracks to build the archers and the berserkers, which were actual units in Warcraft 3 also. And then you'd team them all up to go explore the countryside and then battle the other thing. To me, that sounds like that would fit right along with what DFK is kind of already talking about. And
And that's
RTSs
probably
are
that
amazing.
and that's probably where that PVE comes into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of us have been and are excited about PvP. There's a few people here in the chat box, and I agree with you. I mean, PVE sort of an exciting piece too. I mean, if you're into the lore and the storytelling and maybe more of
Yeah,
that actual gameplay, then PV is certainly that route. When that comes out, I don't know.
yeah,
It may be next year this time, and we probably still talk about PV. Not as a bad thing. It's just I know there's so many moving pieces, and um, they're managing a huge monkey wrench. So anyhow,
yeah.
but before this next piece, let me play a video, and I think it'll queue up this next sort of item up pretty nicely. It's from one of the AMAs. I think it was September 8th, if I'm not mistaken. But let me play it, and then we can talk through it. See what you think.
Sure.
On that one. Yeah, it's a great observation and was part of the discussions as well. Repurposing the the token of Jewel, which probably carries the largest intellectual property in terms of the token itself, the name, its association with DeFi kingdoms, and the long-term scalability across chain. Since the other tokens are meant to be realm specific, chain specific, Jewel is really meant to represent the gamification of all things, the tokenization of all things gaming, and the metaverse as we're trying to create it on our side. So that means that a lot of the downsides that were ever present with listing Jewel at any point really in the last year, you could still argue are still there, but their impact is different now. So one of the are revisiting listing Jewel on other exchanges. We had talks already with Binance and Coinbase. Probably going to be circling back there.
Yeah. So we'll pause it there. Putting Jewel in a centralized exchange. What do you think of that?
Um, so I guess my first question is, what's Jewel all about, right? Is it supposed to be a governance token for DeFi kingdoms? And I think we've heard it is. And so why would someone who doesn't care anything about DeFi kingdoms at all want to, I should say, why would we want to have Jewel, specifically the governance token, available for purchase on a centralized exchange where people would snag this up or be able to maybe, I don't want to say manipulate the market, but perhaps other people that have no interest in DeFi kingdoms as a project uh, buy a lot, sell a lot without giving a care to the people that are actually invested or long term, or want to hold that for governance or voting or anything like that. So to me, that sounds putting on a other centralized exchange. However, I can see that you might want to bring more attention to your coin, in which case I would say, why couldn't we bring, Crystal or the Clayton Power token? Maybe there's some reason they can't do those, which is why they haven't brought Jewel before now anyway. I don't know enough about the crypto and the exchanges in that aspect to know if there was a specific reason, but there probably is, or they would have done it already. But again, I would be a little skeptical about that, just for those reasons I mentioned, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I think to play a little devil's advocate, I think I sit on the other side of this, where I think that for me, I think for the price of Jewel, I think that's a pretty bullish position. I think, to your question of, why would someone be interested in buying Jewel, I think of it, from this perspective, there may be investors out there who, for better or worse, who may be interested in the game but don't want to play the game. They don't have time to play the game. They don't want to look into bots, or they don't want to do this or that. The scholarship program comes to fruition. They're not interested in that. They just want to, hey, it's a great project. I've heard great things. Something akin to, I think Axie Infinity, right? Some of these other games where you could buy the tokens on these centralized exchanges and sort of drop a lot of traffic. For better or worse, I think Jewel sort of maybe. I guess it's hard to say it's stable when it's at 18 cents and it's come down a lot, but it's been shielded from a lot of this sort of volatility. Yes, it's come down, but it doesn't fluctuate. 50 cents, a dollar one way. Every week, right? It's been shielded from a lot of that because it's not in a centralized exchange, because you sort of have to back end your way into Jewel. Um, it could be good for the project. It could be good maybe for Jewel investors. Time will tell. Um, I don't know, but for me, I think I am bullish on that. Again, I think to your point, maybe I would want to see what it ends up looking like at the end of the day. I'd want to know more about it. Um, I was making a joke about being people's exit liquidity. I'm tired of that. I really don't want to be someone's exit liquidity.
Sure,
Uh,
yeah.
Um, but I guess time will tell. So overall, what's your take on it? Pro, con?
I I think I'd want more information. I'm a little skeptical, like I said, of people, even these investors that you're talking about, just diving in, but they don't really care about the project. But they say, "Oh, hey, there's this new, or I've heard of DeFi Kingdoms. Let me invest $1 million." And so then, of course, oh, the price goes up, and then they're like, "Oh, well, now there's this new project out." And again, they don't care anything specifically about DeFi Kingdoms. So they, oh, let me sell this coin and let me get into this other coin real quick. It seems that having it on a centralized exchange would allow a lot more of that type of activity. And so in that way, I'm a little bit more negative. But you're right. Maybe bringing in new investors and having them stick around, or easier access, or a way to bolster our price for people to trade. Maybe that could be good. I don't know. I'm not big on, or I don't understand enough about the tokenomics of how that would affect a positive or negative thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a few more minutes here, but I do want to maybe transition to what did Frisky Fox say, and usually I queue up a video, but I think in the interest of time, I want to share this and sort of get your take. I think two specific statements that I thought were of interest. One sort of alluding to something I had mentioned earlier. Frisky Fox saying, "Hey, as a 50 minute,
Yes.
this is back in 21st, a couple days ago, a few days ago. As of 15 minutes ago, it was now officially deflationary. If I were you, hey, NFA, do your own research, but he's holding on to his jewel.
Yeah.
Sort of interesting. I wanted to get your take on this specifically. See what your thoughts are. Um, Someone asked, Frisky about, how it's going in New York. He said it was going well. He had lunch with five of the Chainlink guys, and they were talking a lot
Hmm.
about how Chainlink and DFK can work together, um, in their multi-chain architecture, and how they could expedite getting Chainlink into DFK. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know enough about anything to know what that means.
Yeah.
Do you, by any chance?
So I do not know Chainlink. I probably should. I've heard it enough a couple of times. It does seem like something that a lot of people are interested in. Um, my my rough guess is it's going to be a way to get your project on more chains and cross chain easier. And if that's the case, then absolutely, especially for a game like DeFi Kingdoms that touts being multi-chain game, I think that would be very important. But I'm going to have to plead ignorance on this a little bit. Sounds good, but as far as the chain link specifically goes, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I sit on the same boat. It sounds interesting. I don't know exactly what it means, but I bring it up to say that, um, I guess the theme of what we're chatting about is that there's a continual building,
Yes.
expanding, chatting, networking,
Yeah.
um, and and it's exciting to hear them. I'm not just talking to people because you and I can talk to people, but just because you and I talk to you know Chainlink and Clayton, doesn't mean they're interested in what we're saying. They're interested in what DFK is saying, and that's just exciting.
Yeah. So looks like Wybiz over here in chat is saying it's a price oracle linking data and prices for different assets, also a random number generator. So something that I have heard them talk about is making kind of like an auction where we can maybe put in different orders for buying things, like possibly even something having um, uh, either market orders or limit orders or something. Is that what I'm kind of understanding a little bit? Because I do remember reading something about limit orders and all this stop loss and all that kind of stuff in there too.
Yeah, and I know over here saying that Chainlink is necessary to make any of the cool graphs work.
Mm,
I've heard it described as the sort of a big component behind the scenes that makes it all work that no one really talks about. From that perspective, that's sort of to your point, ignorance. I don't know what I don't know, but it sounds like a bullish statement for sure. Um, and we'll see what
mm,
sort of the next AMA holds. I expect to hear more about this specifically. I
yeah.
expect to hear more about the conference, sort of co-branded conference or booth here from the weekend. With that said, I know we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. Kind of want to get some closing remarks from you. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your take, and then if you can sort of impart us with maybe a couple words of wisdom for anyone who's either new to the game or someone who's been here a minute and maybe needs to hear I
Yeah.
think 2 cents on something specific. Let's hear it. What do you have for us?
Yeah. So I guess a couple of things. First, to anybody new that is coming into DeFi Kingdoms, there are plenty of content creators and people out there, mods, knights, and all this kind of stuff that really do want to help. And if you're not getting the help that you feel you need, please reach out to a couple of different people. I know that when I've started projects before and I didn't seem to get the answers or people were ignoring me, that I felt like, well, maybe this isn't the friendly community or something, and then I would just leave. So we definitely want to make sure that people are getting heard and responses. Certainly, me as a professional adult educator for many years, I enjoy helping people. I know that Crypto Grady has mentioned before that he wants to get some uh, tutorial videos set up. I want to get some tutorial videos set up. People like you and a bunch of other content creators and streamers are always interested in helping and answering questions and stuff. So I would just say look around for some communities. There are lots of other small side communities in DeFi Kingdoms that love to help. In fact, isn't there at least one or two um, what am I looking for, guilds that are around?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking
Yep, Unity
uh,
Gill. I think I saw
yeah,
Noni in here. He's one of the head honchos there. But
you know,
yeah,
we,
I couldn't agree with you more, Rock. And I'll ask you one more question, but
yeah,
before I ask you that question, just bring up I think Ogre or maybe clears things up for us. So if we go to a chain, and this is response
mm-hmm,
to Chainlink, right? If we go to a chain which doesn't have an oracle like Chainlink, we won't be able to have any price feeds deck screener won't work. It's essentially necessary for any kind of DeFi or GameFi to sort of be operational. Um, so final question for
Mhm.
you, Rock. If people wanted to catch you, where could
Yeah.
they find you?
Yeah, so I've got a Twitch channel which I stream. I'm doing 2 streams a day right now, and I've been doing that for I guess a couple of weeks now. So Rock 808 is the name, and you can find me on Twitch TV. Generally, I'm in U.S. Central Time, 9 a.m. to noon, and then I take a little break for lunch, and then I come back on YouTube from about 2 to 5. I could stream longer, but I'm trying to do a little something on both platforms just to diversify a little bit. And
I didn't know
that's,
you were on YouTube. So how can we
yeah.
find you on YouTube?
Rock 808 also
Rocket 08. Okay, sweet.
is the name. And I'm sure if you did a YouTube search for Rock 808 DeFi Kingdoms, you'd find me there.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I see a lot of Unity Guild love here.
Hmm.
Ogre, I forgot you're part of Unity Guild as well. Noni in here. Unity Guild. What's your Twitter account, Rock?
It should also be Rock 808 there as
Rock
well.
808.
Hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. I loved it. We definitely need to do more of these. Vice versa. I'll end with a hey, consider like a subscription, turn on those notifications, follow me on Twitter, follow Rock on Twitter. And again, much love to the community. If you want to see more of these, if you have a guest in mind, if you'd like to come on, reach out. Love to have you on. And again, I don't claim to know anything, but I claim to know people who know things. So hey, that's as good as knowing things, right, Rock?
Yeah, and I think you're doing some great work here. Really appreciate being on, and I think you're bringing even the stuff that you're doing here is helping to bring the community together more and doing some chatting and stuff like that. So thanks so much for doing what you do.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, signing off. We'll catch you at